I have turned a goose into my ARCH nemesis and we get into a fist fight every single day. So over the last 2 months or so, I have been involved in 28 fist fights, all of which are with this one particular effing goose. You see, I live by a very quiet canal which is pleasant to walk by. This is a walk I like to take every morning, and it also happens to be the walk where my arch nemesis, the goose, resides. It all started 2 months ago. I was walking down the canal when I noticed a goose. Being an animal lover, I went over and ripped off a piece of my sandwich, then gave it to the goose. He ate it, then being the little Nimrod that he is, snatched the entire leftover of my sandwich out of my hand. He moved so fast I barely saw him, and as he was eating it, I tried to lunge for the sandwich to get it back. The goose then kicked me. I have never seen a goose kick before, so this was new. Knowing that I will never be defeated by a goose, I tried again. By this point, the sandwich was in this greedy goose's belly, so when I came back for a rematch with this goose, he bit my hand hard. The bite was hard, so in retort I swung my other fist at the goose and missed, but I managed to graze his beak. This angered the goose, so it bit the other hand, and so I was stuck with 2 wounded hands and no sandwich. This round went to the goose. Annoyed, I walked off and went home, not even finishing my walk. The next day I walked again, and in the same spot who do I see? The same exact goose standing there. I know it was the same goose because it had a distinct black spot on its neck, which was here this time too. Once again I was carrying a sandwich and this time, I was going to be clever. I walked over intending to tease the goose, and that's what I did. I held out my hand with a piece of sandwich, and as the goose went to snatch it, I pulled my hand back, laughing at the idiot goose and calling it stupid as I ate the bit of sandwich that was in my hand. Well, I closed my eyes for half a second enjoying the sandwich while mocking the goose, and half a second is all it took for this goose to snatch the rest of my sandwich out of my hand. I realized what had happened and that it was me who had been bamboozled. So I tried to snatch the sandwich back out of the goose's mouth. Long story short, I ended up with a bruised forearm and no sandwich. It was now 2-0 to the goose. And so I have done this dance with the goose basically every second day since that incident. I go outside with a sandwich, tease the goose with it, and try to walk off smugly without letting him have any. Unfortunately, this does not always go how I planned it, as once the goose chased me until I had no choice but to throw the sandwich on the ground for the goose to eat it and leave me alone. I have won this battle a few times, but the goose ends up winning most of the time. I actually keep track of the score. Currently it's 18-10 in favor of the goose. My wife drained our savings and abandoned me 2 months ago to find herself. My 50M wife Mary, 48F, has a family with a history of dementia, developing memory issues in their mid to late 50s. Her mom, grandmother, and several other relatives on her mom's side have developed dementia. Her dad is no longer in the picture, and her mom lived with us for 4 years until earlier this year. Our kids are independent and out of the house, with the oldest in her last semester of college and the younger one enlisted. The last 4 years were really tough on us and our marriage. Living with someone with dementia is absolutely brutal. We had talked a lot last year about using the remaining college funds, our regular savings, selling or renting the house, quitting our jobs, and traveling for a year or until the money ran out. We just had to wait for her mom to move into a home. I understood her anxiety about developing dementia, and I was burned out. Living through COVID, working remotely, having a wife working remotely, a college and high school student taking remote classes, and a mother-in-law with dementia. Try that and see how well you hold up. Space finally opened up, and we were able to move her mom into a care facility. I finally thought I had a chance to breathe. When we moved Mary's mom out, Mary's mental health took a huge downward spiral. I went from caring for her mom to caring for her. She felt guilty about putting her mom in a home and had lots of anxiety about developing dementia. Our plan was to start our travels in the summer of 2024. 2 months ago, I got home, and she had left a note. Basically, she was going on our trip without me. She had quit her job, taken most of the savings, and wasn't sure when she'd be back, maybe a year, maybe sooner. She said she knew I'd understand. Her location is turned off, and my calls go directly to voicemail. All I could do was text the kids a picture of the note. We have our own checking accounts for direct deposits of our paychecks, but we'd transfer most into a joint account to pay the household bills and savings. We both had access to the main savings account, and she had drained it. I waited a month to see if she'd come back, hopefully before she spent our savings. After receiving only one text in the first month, I went to a lawyer. She basically said there was very little to do right now, other than change the beneficiaries of my retirement accounts and life insurance. Hooray, I guess. My wife gets nothing else if I pass away alone while she's having our adventures. It was only a month, and there was no way to serve her papers. My lawyer advised me to keep paying the mortgage and the cars. The cost of trying to get a judge to approve the sale of joint assets was more than making payments. I didn't want to ruin my credit by letting one of our cars get repossessed, but I can't sell it because she's on the title. I get random texts, and she sporadically posts on Instagram. Of course, she has comments turned off. I want to block her so badly, but my lawyer advised me that it's better to maintain a communication channel that's not through our kids. Her last post was from Hawaii. She put in the comments how great a husband I was for letting her take this trip. I'm barely making it, paying 2 cars, a mortgage, household bills, insurance, hoping there are no emergencies because I have no savings, and she's enjoying our trip alone. I'm so pissed at her. I helped take care of her mom for 4 years, and when she fell apart after her mom moved into a memory care home, she returned the favor by abandoning me. I'll never get to take this trip and have to put off retirement. My only solace is that the kids are angry at her, but they'll probably forgive her eventually. I'm no fool, I know she's hooking up with guys. She looks good and she'll have zero problems getting men. I texted her and asked if she was sleeping around, and it took her an entire week to respond that she wasn't. So, I'm drinking alone on a Friday night, and she's somewhere, probably on a beach, enjoying life. I hate her. Update 1. An update from my original post. I'm feeling much more positive now that the financial situation has become a little more manageable. Basically, I'm running up debt that will get paid off when I sell the house. Even with lawyer fees, I have 6 to 8 more months before I have to worry about money, assuming there are no emergencies. My friend's wife gave me some good advice. Don't go from being a hero to a villain in your kids' eyes. How I talk about and treat my wife will determine my future relationship with my kids. I don't give a damn about my wife, but I don't want to make her a sympathetic figure or drive them away from both of us. I followed up with the lawyer. Basically, she said we're going to have her pay back the savings she took through a reduction in her share of the assets. Any division of assets will include the savings she took. She'll also have to repay the money I spent maintaining the household while she was gone. There is plenty of equity in her share of the house and her retirement plans to cover that. She said that our finances are so intertwined after nearly 25 years of marriage, my wife is going to get some share of the assets. The best case is she agrees to the terms of the divorce, and it's relatively cheap and quick. Otherwise, it gets complicated and expensive. She gave me a lot of options and how much I can expect to spend, so I decided to just mostly wait. Now that my financial situation is less stressful, I'm actually enjoying her being gone. I'm free to do whatever I want, whenever I want. I don't have to cook or clean or take care of anyone. The house is quiet for the first time I can remember. I loved my wife, but her mental health weighed down our marriage. The first month or so, I expected her to be there whenever I'd get home. When someone was at the door or if I heard noises, I'd think it was her. I'd check the doorbell cam obsessively. I'm not looking forward to her returning. It has to happen, but when she comes back, I'll have to deal with her, the divorce, getting the house ready to sell, dividing all our stuff, finding a new place to live. I'm hoping she'll stay away until after New Year's, but my daughter said she thinks her mom will be home for Christmas. My lawyer will have papers ready to serve her. Hopefully, she'll just agree to the terms and continue her travels. I told my daughter that she's no longer allowed to bring her pet rat to my house and she's freaking out. Plus update. So recently, my girlfriend of 2 years and I have moved in together. Everything is great and she gets along very well with my children. At least with my son. I share custody of my 2 children, 16M and 15F, with my ex-wife. But there is one problem. My girlfriend has a phobia for rodents. This is something we all know and people laugh about it, but it is a serious issue for my girlfriend who can't even see a picture without staring hyperventilating. I found out how serious it was when I threw a mouse on her at night as a prank and had such a severe panic attack I had to drive her to the hospital. Anyway, my daughter got a rat as a present when she turned 15. She brought it over to my girlfriend and I's home. My girlfriend freaked out so bad that she apparently left the apartment without even noticing that she didn't have her shoes or coat on. I got upset with my daughter because she knows my girlfriend's fear. I told her that she should leave her pet at her mother's house from now on when she comes here. My daughter got upset and started yelling that my girlfriend is being ridiculous and me too. Her rat wasn't the problem, so it shouldn't have to be kept at her mom's, and that my girlfriend should move out since she's the one who has the problem with the rat, not the rat with her. I told her that we are family and family makes compromises. Now she is saying if her rat isn't welcome then neither is she, and she's planning to stay with her mom until her rat is allowed or my girlfriend moved out. Of course my ex-wife is now bombarding my phone saying I'm an a-hole. Update, my daughter is refusing to talk to me and she has moved in with her mom and said that this is permanent. My son moved in with me and my girlfriend and I can see that he really enjoys it here. I have been blocking my ex-wife's number for periods at a time because I have been receiving all kinds of threats and insults from her saying I have manipulated my son against her. My son is a very quiet boy and he never gave me any impression that he's been having a bad time with his mother. I only noticed when he moved here and started talking and opening up about how miserable he's been. As far as the rat, my daughter decided to free him and she and her mom drove to the woods and just let it go. Not an expert on rats, but that's the story. My deadbeat parents disowned me for beating up my twin brother after he slept with my girlfriend. 8 years later they want to reconnect with me and I don't know why. Growing up I was the black sheep of the family and I knew that from a very young age. My parents weren't exactly secretive about it. The problem was that my family is full of athletes who played basketball, soccer, softball, and football professionally. On the other hand, I was interested in archery, which my family called a wimpy sport. I had to beg my parents to come to my tournaments, but they never showed. I was never neglected by them, but they were never emotionally there for me as they were for my siblings, and as a teenager I resented that. Whenever I tried to bring this up to them, they would always call me an attention seeker. Things took a turn for the worst when I was 15 and began dating a girl from my class. I really liked her and though I was young, I could see myself having a future with her. After 6 months of dating, I introduced her to my parents and siblings, who all really liked her. We dated for 2 years and I was really happy with her, until I found out she was cheating on me with my own twin brother. She told me that while at first she loved me, the love she had for my brother surpasses that. Later that same day, I went home to confront my brother. I was so enraged that I sucker punched him and knocked him out. I admit that I should have not gotten violent, but years of resentment towards him and the rest of the family just burst open. In exchange for my family not pressing charges on me as I could have been tried as an adult in court, I was sent to live with my paternal aunt who at this point was estranged from the family and lived in another city about 2 hours away. From then on, I have not had any contact with them and they didn't bother contacting me. At first, it was tough because I knew they didn't like me, but this felt too far. With support from my aunt and her husband, I was able to move on from wanting a relationship with them and knew that this was for the better. Since then, I graduated from school, met my beautiful wife, and we were blessed with a daughter a year ago. Just when my life was going great, I received a message from my parents, asking me to celebrate Christmas at their house to reconnect. The whole thing was honestly really sketchy because we hadn't spoken in 8 years, and knowing my parents, they definitely had ulterior motives. I just didn't know what they were at the time. Still, I told them that I would consider it as I possibly have other plans, but would give them a clear answer soon. But then my brother and sister sent me friend requests, which felt weird to me since they always preferred my twin over me. They didn't even like people knowing we were related. I doubt they would want them knowing we were friends. Should I go and try to reconcile with my family or not? On one hand, they perhaps feel bad about what they did to me and want to apologize for what they did, but on the other hand, perhaps if I go there, they will try to make me apologize to Casey, which I do not want to. Update: after lots of thinking, I told them that I decided to spend the holidays with my wife. I assumed they would try to argue with me, but instead they said they respected my opinion and could not wait to see me after the holidays. I was really confused as to why they wanted to see me so badly again. So, I went to talk to my aunt who raised me about the whole thing. That's when she told me the whole truth. A month ago, my grandpa reached out to ask about me and what I was doing in my life. My aunt was quick to call him out for wanting to know about me after he supported my twin for what he did. My grandpa told my aunt that I deserved to be estranged because I had cheated on my girlfriend with one of her close friends. My jaw dropped. My parents had changed the entire narrative of the original story. He had been told by my family that after the friend who I allegedly cheated with confessed to my ex, she went to my twin and sister for support and comfort. Apparently, when I found out about this, I confronted and brutally attacked my siblings. While my sister was the one who tried to break me and my twin apart, I never laid a finger on her. I didn't brutally attack my twin either. I honestly could not believe that my family hated me so much that they were willing to make up a terrible lie about me and spread it around. My aunt told my grandpa the full truth about what happened, and just days later, he had told my parents and siblings that if they did not apologize for what they did to me and have me over for the family Christmas dinner, they would be cut off from his will. He's a multimillionaire, so they were willing to put their pride aside to get his money. Even after 8 years of being disowned, my parents have not learned to care about me and were just using me for money.
My school nurse refused to give me my prescribed medication. So I called my stepdad, a famous talk show host, for help. I was abused by my dad's wife growing up. My mom fought long and hard to gain custody, but my dad was a good Christian with more money and he didn't fraternize with black people. Given our location, my mom stood no chance, even though vertical bar I had marks and scars from my dad's wife. She finally got custody when I was old enough to where my opinion mattered. I switched from a fancy, extremely competitive, snobby private school to the local public school by choice. I dyed my hair green and put a gay pride sticker on my car. Based on where I was coming from alone, I was placed in all the honors and AP classes the school offered. Teachers didn't know what to think of me. I had green hair. My bumper sticker was definitely the most controversial topic in the entire school. But I was quiet. I came from fancy school. I paid attention in class. I was earning straight A's. Thankfully, although most of my peers shunned me, my teachers realized pretty quickly that I was a decent enough kid. But I had a problem where I got migraines. Finally got a prescription for them, and took it straight to the nurse's office because the district had a zero-tolerance policy and being in possession of even headache medicine would get you expelled for substance possession. Nurse, you're going to have to get the doctor's signature on this form. Me, why? It's a legitimate prescription with my name on it in the original bottle. Nurse, condescendingly, we're required to have a doctor's signature before we can dispense medications. Me, how do you think I got the prescription in the first place? Nurse decided to impress upon me the fact that I was powerless here, and that there was absolutely nothing I could do except comply. I left the office stressed because I didn't have access to my migraine medicine, and of course ended up stressing myself out into developing a migraine. Call me a Karen, but I felt entitled to go to the nurse's office and be dispensed my medication, and so I politely requested it be given to me. The nurse obviously told me no, so I asked for the principal. Got the assistant principal, who simply reiterated district policy. Then it occurred to me that it was within my power to get my medicine. Because I had a secret weapon. So I had to be sneaky. Me, I'd like to call one of my parents. This phone call wasn't intended for my dad, a financial consultant. It wasn't to my mom, who worked in sales and advertising. Of course I wasn't calling Stepmonster. But my stepdad, on the other hand, just happened to be our region's most famous radio talk show host at the time. And he was on the air for another 2 hours. The assistant principal brought me the phone book, those existed back then, and I looked up the radio station's number in the yellow pages without the assistant principal figuring out which business I was calling. Called the radio station and got the front desk. Of course lots of people call them, ask for him, and get absolutely nowhere. But I knew they would interrupt his show and he'd take the call if I told them I was his daughter Royal. In all my life, I had never had a situation that warranted me calling him at work. I was hoping he'd take the call while on air, but he didn't want to air what was likely private business, so he put commercials on while I explained the situation. Then I suppressed a poop-eating grin while handing the phone to the assistant principal to talk to my stepdad, Bill. I managed a poker face. The assistant principal didn't realize he was talking to Bill Jones when he dismissed my concerns, and even suggested I should be denied my medication simply due to my pants, which I'd been wearing half the year without problem, but apparently were a uniform violation that day. Assistant principal basically explained that's just how it is and tough luck and did not realize the poop he just stepped into. He hung up, dismissed me, and walked off looking pretty self-satisfied at winning his little power trip. I went to class feeling victorious. I hadn't won yet, but I'd played my cards and knew how it would turn out. Stepdad got back on air and immediately changed the topic of discussion to the ridiculousness of the district's medication policy. The phone lines lit up. Turns out lots of people wanted to air their complaints. I was sitting in class, migraine kicking in. But I was feeling satisfied that their lack of respect for me was hitting the fan. I timed it. 45 minutes after I was arrogantly denied my legally prescribed medication that I needed, the assistant principal came into the classroom I was in, knelt down beside my desk, and whispered, "Hey. You want to come take your medication?" Fallout, even more fun, because the school wanted desperately to expel me. But while I 100% can be a troublemaker when I want to be, I never did anything for which I could have defensively been disciplined. They had nothing on me. I knew it. They knew I knew it. And they knew they couldn't get away with making this up because Bill Jones. All my friends were seniors, and the school admins didn't realize until the last day of school that I was a junior. I could see the panic in assistant principal's eyes. "Assistant principal, you can take one summer course in English and you'll be able to graduate early." Me, absolutely not. I haven't submitted any college applications and most of the competitive schools I'll be applying to require more than the basic minimum to graduate. I'll be here for another year. "Assistant principal, would you like to take your high school classes at the community college instead? You'll get high school and college credit." This was a barely heard of program at the time, but they wanted to get rid of me so badly, I got to rack up a year's worth of college general education credits during my senior year. They tried to F me over, so I F'd back, and since they couldn't punish me, they rewarded me just to get me to go away. I refused to walk down the aisle with my dad. I love him, but he's the last person I want near me on my wedding day. When I was 4 years old, my dad found some Jezebel or whatever and cheated on my mom. Sadly, I had to see my father on weekends. I hated going because his little homewrecker wife always tried to act like my mother. I still loved him, though, so I went to his house and tried to stick to his side. She hated that. She would always pinch me and yell at me whenever he wasn't around. Whenever I told him, he'd tell me I was lying for attention. When he got married to that witch, I wasn't even invited to the wedding. His excuse was that I was bitter and would ruin the ceremony with one of my tantrums. When he had my half-brother, he started ignoring me. He stopped picking me up for my weekend visits and just paid the mandatory child support. He basically abandoned me. He would tell me that he wouldn't talk to me unless I act like a good child, also known as call my stepmom mom rather than her name. He would make excuses not to take me to ice cream or do any activities. He once promised me to go to one of my school events and take me fishing after. He ghosted me and told my mom there was an emergency. I was again abandoned. Want to know the emergency? Poor baby brother had a cold. By that time my mom started dating my stepdad, Lenny. Lenny was the father I never had. He was a single dad, but he still treated me like his own child. He taught me how to swim, how to drive my car, he attended all the school functions I was in. He was there every time my dad abandoned me. I went very low contact with my dad, only contacting him on Christmas. I don't even call him on Father's Day. I'm getting married now and naturally, I asked Lenny to walk me down the aisle because he's my real dad. My dad was invited as a regular guest. This infuriated my dad. He told me I am his only daughter. I shouldn't keep him away from his rights as a father. I'm getting calls from his side of the family too. My father is upset and I am sidelining him. According to him, he has been a great father and I am being unfair to him. He doesn't want Lenny to walk me down the aisle at all. I told my dad he can walk his stepdaughter on the aisle and he will only be a guest. I have made my decision. He called me a jerk and told me he didn't pay child support just so I could grow up to be an ungrateful brat. So was I wrong? I know he is my dad, but I just don't feel like he is.